We've been reading through Matthew 28 verses 16 to 20. You will notice that we could have just read verses 18 to 20, where we actually have the words of the commission. But I'm wanting you to see these stories in context. Of course, if we really want to understand the context of this commission, we need to start with Matthew chapter 1 and verse 1. And then we'd see the context, because you see, the books of the Bible and the Gospels were written as letters, to be read as letters, without chapter and verse divisions. And so it's when we read right through that we get the real context. Were there things that surprised you, or things that you didn't understand? Sometimes I'm asked, why were there only 11 disciples at this particular point on a mountain in Galilee? Well, if we look at the context, Jesus had been betrayed by Judas on the Thursday night before he was crucified on the Friday, and Judas died. Jesus rose on the first day of the week, and the women first told the disciples, Jesus wants you to meet them in Galilee, and he told them, I want you to meet me on a mountain in Galilee. Now, we don't know exactly where Jesus met them, but there's only 2 mountains in Galilee. And Mount Arbel is most likely the mountain that they met on, with a view of the region of Galilee on the western side, the Jewish-occupied territory, Galantis or the Golan Heights around the northern side of the lake, Decapolis, the pagan Roman territory on the eastern side of the lake, and Jesus comes and meets them. It may have surprised you also that some worshipped him, but some doubted. Who was this person? They knew that he had been crucified and that he was alive, but for some to worship him indicated that they recognized that he was indeed God, the Son of the living God. Others were just not totally sure, but Jesus commissioned them all, those who worshipped and those who were still hesitant. He commissioned them all, saying, go and make disciples of all nations. Now, I've included here the word that Matthew uses in translating what Jesus said in Aramaic. And here Matthew records this commission with the word Ethne. Go and make disciples of all ethne, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them all the things that I've commanded. This word ethne is a very particular word. You can hear the meaning of this word and its connections to the words ethnicity and ethnic. In your conversation guide on page 8, you have an illustration of what Jesus is speaking about. You'll see the bands of grey in this illustration representing ethne, or people groups. In Revelation chapter 14, verses 6 and 7, we read that the eternal gospel is to be preached to every nation, language, tribe, and people. And that's what the word ethne points to. It speaks of family groups or tribes or relational streams. And in other teaching places, Jesus said that in all of these relational streams, there are key people whom he called people of peace. And then from one tribe or one ethnicity or one relational stream to another, there will be key people who can move and connect with other streams to take the eternal gospel and the story of Jesus. So Jesus is saying, go and make disciples of all relational streams, not just nations as we would define nations today, but every relational stream is to be reached with the story of Jesus. So start with people in your relational stream. Start with those who are connected and close, and reach out and share the story of Jesus. Now, I want you to spend a few moments in your groups again, and for the next 15 minutes, I want you to look carefully at the meaning of this term ethne and what this means for disciple making, for your disciple making, your relational streams. And I want you also to consider, as you look at these verses again in Matthew 28, verses 16 to 20, what is the vision that God has for disciple making and his kingdom movement? How big is the vision that he has? And you may like to also spend just a few moments considering the question, how important is it for new disciples to be gathered in new fellowships of faith? And why might that be important when you consider the meaning of the term ethne? And so with your facilitator and your groups, I want you now to go and discuss these questions for 15 minutes. And then we'll be ready to continue to look at the Gospel Commission, not just the Great Commission, but the Gospel Commission, and look at the message.